want to say hi, everybody. My name is Riel Fadel. I'm the music librarian for Fort Worth Public Library. And this is our special lunchtime wind down special where we just kind of do some things on our lunch break that helps us relax, decompress, learn a little bit, just kind of wind down from the week. And again, today we have Miss Linda with us from Log Cabin Village, who's going to do some Valentines with us and talk a little bit about the historical content of it as well, which I'm really interested in. So people who are joining us should have their kits available that were made possible from the Log Cabin Village. But I'm gonna go ahead and turn the floor over to Linda, and you're gonna lead us through all of this.
Thank you. Well, welcome everybody. And hopefully you have your kits by now. If you don't, you can use a lot of the things probably that you have around the house. What we're gonna make today is a historical heart in hand card, and what you see, that's what you see right here. I've made several as examples out of various papers that I got at craft stores, Walmart, Hobby Lobby, Joann's, any of those. The heart in hand is an old design, almost ancient design, and it is symbolic of charity, of giving within the heart. It is an easy recognizable symbol. You find it a lot in Shaker neighborhoods, and it's a pictorial reminder of the simple life of hard work and spirituality. Put your hands to work and your heart to God. It implies a loving welcome. It was used as the Oddfellows symbol, symbolizing friendship, love, and truth. And it was also used by the Protestant reformer John Calvin, and appears on Calvin College under his motto, "My heart I offer to you, Lord, promptly and sincerely." Now, in the 1840s, it was started to be used here, and it could be given as a love token, or a love token is not necessarily between lovers, but it could be. It could also be between friends. You know, you have my heart in your hands, is what it could mean. So there's a lot of different meanings attached to this particular historic design. And we're going to make those today, and you can say whatever you want about what your design and what it means to you, to whoever you give it to, or whether you frame it for your own self. Okay, so you should have a notebook like this. And when you open it up on the left, there's going to be some papers, some different colored papers. You might have one that's solid. If you'll pull those out, and you'll also have one of these cardboard picture frames, and you can put your finished work on top of that and fold it in half. The other things in your folder you're going to be able to use on your own for a second project. And you'll also notice that we have a card in there advertising Log Cabin Village. So we hope you come and see us sometime. We are open now, and we should hopefully be fully open at some time in the future, and you can see us all in our glory. So the first thing we're going to do is take your papers, and you should have 3 different colors, and they should be coordinated, and you can decide which one is going to be your backdrop, and which one is going to be your hand, and which one is going to be your heart. And you're going to use a different color for each one. And so you can decide on that, and play around with them and see which one looks the best. And then once you decide which one is going to be your hand piece, that's the one we're going to start with. Now I'm going to use this piece right here. And now whether you're right-handed, left-handed, it doesn't matter. How do you want your hand to face? If you want your hand to go one way, you leave your print face up. If you want it to go the other way, you turn it around and draw on the back. Now, if you draw on the back, when you cut it out, it's not going to show any stray pencil marks if you happen to have any on there. So if you'll just go ahead and get your paper out and put it on a table, you're going to need a pencil and something to cut with, preferably something really, really sharp. These are paper scissors specifically for scrapbooking. These are embroidery scissors with the crane with a really sharp little beak there that's great for those tiny little spaces you might want to get in between corners. And if you don't have any of those, fingernail scissors work very well as well. And I have a tape runner. You will also have some tape dots in your packet that you can use to adhere your finished project. If you don't have anything else, tape is your friend. So I'm going to start by drawing my hand. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I get my hand on the paper far enough in and down so that I can get my entire hand on the paper. I'm going to leave a little bit of space down here. I'm going to start, pardon me, with drawing a skirt from the bottom of my wrist down to the edge of the paper. And then start drawing around my hand. Just like some of your kids in kindergarten might want to do. And so I have my hand here. Now here is your chance if you think your hand is a little chubby. Doesn't usually come out looking great when you're tracing it. You can draw around it and decrease the size, make it look a little prettier, lengthen your fingernails if they happen to break off or something, and make your hand look really nice. And hopefully you've left some space on the sides and the top. On the bottom, you can leave some space or not. And I will tell you, if you start cutting, pardon me, if you can continue to cut all the way around without stopping and without cutting different parts off, then you can use the outside edge to make another Valentine. Like I've done this with this one. I put it directly on the back of this card, and now I can have two with the same paper.
I just want to say that I'm somebody who really loves upcycled things and recycling, and I hate wasting craft supplies and paper and things. So I love that you brought that up because that's very much something I do. I would have been like, can I do that too? Can I make more than one?
Yes, you can make more than one, especially if you don't have if you're going to buy the fancy, more expensive paper at your craft stores, and you want something really elegant like one of these. You want to get as much use as you can out of that sheet of paper. Okay, so go ahead and start cutting out your hand. And if any of you are teachers, this is a craft you could probably do with some of your older students. I have a 7-year-old grandson who could draw his hand but was not able to cut it out, and a 4-year-old granddaughter who just scribbled on the paper with a crayon and then walked away. So she wasn't that interested in this. Now, earlier in the 19th century, courting customs were very different than what they are today. If a gentleman wanted to go and call on a young lady, he usually had to do so in the presence of her parents, especially in England, the old country. In the aristocracy, it was much more formal back then. He might not even speak with her. That might not even be considered appropriate to approach an unmarried woman and talk to her without being formally introduced. He would carry cards around with him, calling cards, if they happened to meet at, say, a ball or a dance. And he wanted to escort her home, he might give her his card. And she would collect cards all evening long from anyone who wanted to escort her home. And in the evening, at the end, she would return a card of her own to whoever she wanted to escort her home, and that would be who escorted her home. So things were very much more formal back then. And this, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but they also had something called vinegar Valentines. And I'll show you some later, but I want to show you one of them right now. Whoops. And that's this one. This is a postcard. The postcards came out around 1861. But this says, "Have you given me the mitten?" And that is a euphemism, basically, for a Dear John letter. You know, are you breaking up with me? This wasn't just given between intimate people. It was also how you might find out that, you know, you were losing your job. You were given the mitten, you lost your job. So it could be anytime someone is separating from someone else under not so pleasant circumstances, you could have gotten the mitten. All right, so now we have
a sweet way of saying that. I'm just gonna say that. That's getting the mitten, even though it's just terrible news.
yes, you know. All right, and so now we have, I don't know if you can see this, it's so dark. Now we have our hand, and I'm going to put my hand on this color as my background. Or maybe not. Maybe I'll put it on this one as my background. It'll show up better. That's better. Now I'm going to make my heart out of this one. Okay, now you've probably made your heart before. You've taken your paper any way you want, folded it in half. Let's decide how big we want it. We want it to be about the size of our palm. As you can see on here, it can go out beyond the edges of the palm or not, up to you. But I'm going to fold this and not put a hard crease in it. If this were children, I'd say go ahead and put a hard crease in it because this is more difficult. But adults, I think, are able to cut their hearts. Just cut a heart out of this. Now we're just going to cut a half of a heart. And I'm eyeballing this. If you feel better drawing it, you can do that first. Okay. And that's about what it's going to look like. And I have this left over if I want to do something else with it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this heart and turn it upside down and put it back on here. Put it about where I want, about centered. And then fold both in half. Again, not putting a hard crease in it. Okay, you can see the heart is now upside down, and we're going to cut 5 strips in our heart up toward the rounded part of the heart. Let me turn this way and see if you can see it. I'm going to start right in the middle of my heart and cut a slit upwards. About an inch or so. And then another 2 slits above and 2 slits below. And in my case, it's really about the length of my scissors. Just some little snips there. So now you can see on the back, front, they're kind of a V-shaped cuts in them. When you turn those around, they're facing the opposite directions. So now we're going to put our heart on top of our hand. It's white, so you can see it better. And just start sliding it down into it. You can push from the back. It's going to look like it's woven. And it doesn't work for me today. So I'll try this again, facing the camera, laying it on top, and just, in some times you can just slide it down and it will go right in. You can guide it a little bit with your finger from behind. Started too low. There we go. you should be able to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. Now this is not going to stay there like that. It'll slide right out, but you can move it around and situate it where you want it to be. How big do you want those, that center to look? And when you get it where you want it, you're going to go from the behind and start pushing the, in this case, it's the blue part, the heart, from behind. It's going to come from behind and go over the part that is your hand. Like that. And that's not showing up very well, so I'm going to do it with a different one. I can find my heart.
Is it that one right there? I think it's blending into the table on you. Lift up.
No,
there.
this one's too small.
Okay.
It's like this, but it's larger. Oh, here it is. This one should be easier to see because it's a lighter color. It helps if you start at the top so you know you got all of them there. Yeah, this is much easier. It's easier to see. And then just push up from the back and you're pushing the alternate color through. It also helps if this is not your very thick paper. So this is your cardstock or anything really, heavy would be a little bit harder to push. The lighter weight your paper is, the easier it is to handle. And there we have our heart and hand. And we can put it, in this case, on dark paper. And even the outline, I'm going to glue down. And I'm not even going to bother because it's pretty heavy. I'm just going to stick a heart on there. And you can do that too if you don't want to mess with the weaving part of it. And this is going to go on there like that. And you've got some dots in your folder to adhere your hand to. And I'm going to use a tape runner because I have those at home. I'm going to line this up right along the bottom edge. And there's my finished heart and hand. And if you'd like, you can glue it on your folder. And inside you can put a photograph. Okay, that's our first project. Now back to the vinegar Valentines.
Now, this
Vinegar
is make a
Valentine.
really sweet memento for anybody, especially like my mother, and I know all my relatives kind of save all of these things through the years, especially things with handprints, because you can always check throughout the years if it grows or once the kiddos get bigger. So I really love this one. Thank you for doing that one with us.
Oh, thank you. Does anybody have any questions before we move on procedures or how we did anything? Okay. All right. Well, over here are some vinegar Valentines. Some of them are. Here's a picture of one that I got on the internet. This is a really good example of one. These came out all the way back in 1840, and they continue to this day. If you're going to the card section of your local store, it's the section that's going to have your cards that are a little bit mean-spirited, naughty, maybe risque. That's always been around. So here are some that are and are not like that. Now here you have some nicer ones. This one is, these cards, by the way, are from 1906 to 1909, and they are in my own possession. These were my husband's grandmother's cards. And so this one is a picture of a beautiful lady. It's Be My Sweetheart. And there's some gold leafing in here. So it's a very nice postcard. And this one is a very nice postcard as well. It says, Cupid with music is filling my heart. Okay, listen and you will discover. 'Tis your name that rings as tunes the strings for dearest one. I am your lover. There's no hinting around that one. This one is a forget-me-not. It has hearts all over the place. Here's to the rose that buds and grows. Pluck it and call it your own. For the rose may fade, and so the maid, if she lives too long alone. And this one is like a check, an old-fashioned check. Bank of Happiness. And you put the date in there. This one is from 1908. Deliver to Miss Mabel Scribner. That's my husband's grandmother. 366 days of health, wealth, and prosperity. Must have been a leap year. This is where we start getting a little bit on the slightly risque side. And you can see these are exaggerated features. These are not pretty people at all. It says, the scissors grinder's dandy, and I like him awful well. When he sharpens up the knives, he lets me ring his bell. Here's a perfect example of a vinegar Valentine, something that's grotesque almost. I'm wearing my heart away for you. There's someone actually grinding his heart down. You're the only girl I ever loved, but I can't keep telling you so all the time. Man wanted. And the space next to her on the bench says to let, to rent. Here's a fairly nice looking lady with a gentleman collar. I would if I could, but I can't because I'm married now. And this one is cheeky little hussy. No one would have to kiss me like that. As if anybody would want to. And this one is actually a birthday card, but it's got the design of what we're about to move to. So that's why I've included that one in here. So if you'll open up your folder, on the other side, you'll find some patterns. And these are Sharon's knit patterns. There should be about 3 of them in there. And this one is that heart, that fan. And that is almost the same design right there. And this card is from, I think, 1906 or so. So what you can do with these is you can, what we'll do is cut one, you can cut one out. If you are making these, if you want to save these for your class or for students or for use again, I would photocopy these before you do any cutting on them so you keep a pattern. And these are other examples of some Sharon's knit. These are ones that were made, oh gosh, back in the 1980s. And it's what it is. You fold paper and fold it again and then start cutting. And if you look closely at these, you can see right up here, there's a name. There's my name. And this is my sister's name. And folded completely up. These are just folded in half and then half again. These are kind of delicate, so it's hard to fold them tightly. But you could make your own pattern. There is no pattern for these. You just fold a paper and then fold it again like you would a snowflake. And then draw your cursive name across the top, making sure you leave something touching the sides all around the centers and the outsides for it to hold on to. These are some Christmas patterns. These are very simple ones that have been made into ornaments. And this is very common in the German communities. This is a German pattern, a German style of decorating. And these would be made, folded in half, cut, make another one, fold it in half and cut it, and then sew it right down the middle. In my case, I taped it rather than sewed it because it makes it sturdier, and put a string on it. And these will also turn when they're on your Christmas tree. And if you're running them through your printer, you can do it on shiny, glossy paper or on metallic paper or anything else you want. This is an actual picture of a Sharon Schnitt design that was cut in 1863 by a 20-year-old Clarissa Wilcox. So this is one that is in a museum somewhere behind glass. So to make your patterns here, I've got a few that I've already cut out. There's this one, and then there's this one. I didn't finish cutting out the little holes in this one. You might want to cut these and then turn it over on the back side so you don't have your lines around the edges showing if you didn't get all your edges off. So I would turn it over before I glued it down. And for these little holes, if you had a hole punch, a round hole punch instead of scissors, that might work even better. But to make those, you'll take your pattern and it will be in half like this. That's what you have in your book. And you fold it right along that center, and there probably is not a line there, so it won't show. And you just fold it in half. Now at that point, you're going to tape it down. So it doesn't wiggle on you. When you're cutting, you don't want this to wiggle. Okay. And now we're going to start cutting away. We're going to get a lot of this big stuff out of the way at first, but leave a good bit of space around it. Now you're going to tape it. Okay, so it's stuck together now and it's not going to come apart. And we can start cutting. When you start cutting, it's helpful if you start cutting close to the center and the smallest parts that you can find. That's where these scissors with the pointy ends come. Like this diamond right there, that's where I'm going to poke in. It helps if you poke in the center, not next to the edge, but where the line is, but closer to the middle. And also so you don't stab yourself. Put it on your table and put your point in there and then lift up on the paper. And that way you can get your nice little point without hurting yourself. You might have something on the table to protect the table. And our very first hold there is right there. And so I'll just keep cutting away at this from the center out. I found that working from the center out, you have more control because you're not cutting away your support. It's still around the edges. So you keep all of your, you keep the ability to hang on to it, and it's taped so it won't slip on you, and you end up with something that's not quite even on both sides. But this is not one where I just keep on going around it until I'm all the way around the edge, because it's too difficult. Sometimes it also helps to go underneath with your scissors if it gives you more control or helps you see it better. And you can start working away toward the outside as long as you have something to hold on to. See, this one I've done a lot more on, and I still have something to hang on to. It's still taped. And when I get it all the way finished, I have what you see over there. And these can be glued onto one of your papers. You also have some papers in your folder, some regular construction paper, different colors that you can fold and put on as well. So those should be on the left side of your book over here. You might have any number of different colors, probably at least 3 sheets in there that you can do something with. Does anybody have any questions?
And feel free to post any questions that you may have in the chat. I'm moderating that so I can see that if anybody does, but so far, this seems really great, really simple so far. Thank you.
Okay, is everybody managing okay? Okay. Well, this is all the process. The rest is just cutting and gluing.
Yeah. And we've got a thumbs up from our people, so I think everybody's doing good right now.
And this would be especially nice to do if you had some nice music going on, maybe some jazz or something easy listening, and your favorite beverage by your side.
And definitely with the weather that we have right now that it's winter time, it's getting a little colder, this is definitely a good indoor activity to do. Especially if you have leftover craft materials or anything else. And these are really great to use for future stencils as well.
Most
so
of these things, excuse me, most of these things are things that you would have in your house already. You could use printer paper for this if you needed to. That works very well. All right, if no one has any further questions, here is your opportunity to go and enjoy your own cutting experiences.
Yes, I think everybody good for now. Thank you so much for doing this for us, Linda. And thank you, Log Cabin Village, for joining us today for our lunchtime wind down. We'll be doing lunchtime wind down for the rest of at least spring. We do it at 1 o'clock. We'll have a couple of other guests as well. And we'll be doing various things, some of them activities, some of them passive, some of them crafting. So definitely tune in for that. And we'll be definitely working with Log Cabin Village again. So thank you guys again and have a good day.